viewers. Today we discuss the topic is photoperiodism. Photoperiodism is the sum total of plants' physiological response to relative lengths of day and dark period. At high latitude, this is important because the change in the length of the day indicates the season. Days getting shorter indicate winter approaching. Longer indicate summer approaching. Response varies with the age of the plant and in its intensity. The night break phenomenon, a short flash of light in the middle of the night, makes the plant behave as it had been exposed to a long day. It is different from phototropism. Phototropism is the differential growth of the plant in response to light stimuli. Shoots bend towards the light while roots bend away from it. Phototropism has no correlation with duration of light. In photoperiodism, flowering and other developmental processes are regulated in response to the photoperiod, that is day length. Flowering plant comprises of two phases. First one is the vegetative and second one is the reproductive. Under an appropriate photoperiod, plant switches from vegetative to reproductive phase, responding to synthesis of flowering hormones and its subsequent translocation to buds. So, the effect of daily duration of light hours on growth and development of the plants, especially flowering, is called photoperiodism. Flowering in the plants occurs when the change in the day length, photoperiod mechanism in the leaves, fluorescent hormones are liberated in the flower buds and flowering occurs. The discovery of photoperiodism was given by W. Gardner and H. Allard. They studied flowering in Maryland mammoth variety of tobacco plant in 1920. Variety was a single gene mutant tobacco that did not flower in the spring or summer like wild types. Under controlled experiments in light tight boxes where they could manipulate the amount of light and dark, they discovered that flowering only occurred if the day length was 14 hours or less. They called the Maryland mammoth short day plant because it required a light period shorter than a critical length to flower. In 1920, W. Gardner and H. Allard published their discoveries on photoperiodism and felt it was the length of day length that was critical. But it was later discovered that length of the night was the controlling factor. Photoperiodic flowering plants are classified as long day plants or short day plants even though night is the critical factor because of the initial misunderstanding about daylight being the controlling factor. Along with LDPS and SDPS, there are plants that fall into dual day length category. These plants are either long short day plants or short long day plants. Long short day plants flower after a series of long days followed by short days, and short long day flowers after a series of short days followed by a long days. Each plant has different length, critical photoperiod or critical night length. Artificial lighting can be used to induce extra long days. Modern biologists believe that it is coincidence of the active forms of phytochrome or cryptochrome created by light during daytime with the rhythms of circadian clock that allows plants to measure the length of night. Photoperiodism in plants also includes the growth of the stems or roots during certain season, the loss of leaves. Photoperiodism is responsible for the distribution of the many plants worldwide. Ragweed, a short day plants flowers only when the day length is shorter than 14.5 hours. In northern Maine, days do not shorten to this length until August. This is so late in the growing season that the first frost arrives before the resulting seeds are mature enough to resist the low temperature. So the species cannot survive there. By contrast, long day plants, spinach is not found in the tropics because their days are never long enough to stimulate the flowering process. To investigate photoperiodism, plants grown in growth chambers, timers are used to control the length of light and dark period. Researchers have shown that dark period is more important than the light period. If SDPs are grown under short day conditions but the dark period is interrupted by short flash of the light, the SDP will not flower. The long night that normally accompanies a short day is interrupted by a flash. An interruption of the light period with dark has no effect. SDP should more accurately be called long night plants and LDP should be called as short night plants to emphasize the key role played by darkness in the photoperiodism. Most plants require several weeks of the appropriate long night or a short night cycle before they will flower. Red light 660 nanometer was found to be the most effective for interrupting the dark period. This effect can be reversed by subsequent exposure to far red light, that is 730 nanometer. These observations lead to the discovery of phytochrome, the pigments responsible for absorbing those wavelengths, apparently the light sensor in photoperiodism. Photoperiodism results from an interaction between phytochromes and the plant's biological clock, which measures the time between successive dawns and successive dusk. These interactions are thought to be activate the genes for flowering. Garner and Allard and others discovers that tobacco, soybeans, chrysanthemums and several other species followed only when the days were shorter than some maximum length and the nights are longer than some minimum length, with the exact times depending on the species. They call plants with this response is short day plants. Such plants flower in the either spring. Radishes and spinach and different species than their experimental tobacco and other species had an opposite response. They flowered only when days were longer than some minimum length and the nights were shorter than some maximum length. These are called long day plants. These plants flower primarily in the summer. Tomato, sunflower and yet another species of the tobacco and several other species formed flower almost independently of day length. These plants are called day neutral plants. Later, work by other investigators found a very few species called intermediate day plants. They followed only when the days was neither too short nor too long. The opposite is also known. Some plants flower on the long or a short but not on intermediate days. A few species have an absolute photoperiod requirements, while others are prompted by photoperiod but eventually flower without it. Although light intensity sometimes also influence the response. Typically, plants not respond to the amount of light but only the duration of light and dark. A short day cockleber plant, that is Gentium stromarium, blooms only when the nights are longer than about 8.3 hours. Long day plants, Hennebin and Hyoscyamus niger, flowers only when the nights are shorter than about 12 hours. The effective duration of light and dark are typically almost independent of temperature. Temperature often influences the type of responses. Some species may require cool temperature followed by long warmer days. Example, sugar beet. Some species may be day neutral at one temperature and have a photoperiod requirement at another temperature. Many plant response in addition to flowering are controlled by photoperiodism. These are stem lengths, dormancy, leaf fall in autumn, germination of some seeds, tuber and bulb formation, and many other plant manifestation. In flowering, leaf senses the photoperiod. So, some signal must be sent from leaf to the buds where flower forms. Most researchers confident that hormone florizin must exist. Measuring time, the essence of photoperiodism is the measurement of time, that is the duration of day and night. Interrupting the night with even a brief period of light, seconds to an hour or two, depending on the species and light intensity, stops the short day response or promotes the long day response. If the total of light plus darks adds up to more or less than 24 hours, it is the dark period that seems to be important. Photoperiod sensitive plants measures the duration of both day and night. Time measurement in photoperiodism is clearly related to the circadian leaf movement and other manifestation of biological clock. How do we plants know when it is light or dark? The pigment phytochrome, so important in many plant responses, couples the light environments to the mysterious biological clock. Phytochrome exists in two forms. One form called PR, absorb red light, which converts it to the other form, that is PFR. And PFR absorb longer wavelengths of the light called far red, which converts to the back to the PR. During the day, red light predominates, so most of the pigment is in the PFR form, signaling to the clock that it is light. The clock measures how long it is light. As it begins to get dark, PFR begins to break down, some of it converted to PR. Drop in the PFR level signals the clock that it is getting dark. The clock begins to measure the length of the dark period. When the lengths of the both day night are the right for the particular species, the next steps in the response to the photoperiods are initiated. Example, florizin may be begin to synthesized. Much study has gone into the understanding this phenomenon, and recent work has emphasized the role of specific genes in flowering process. Importance of photoperiodism. Annual can be grown twice or thrice in a year. Prevention of the winter dormancy and autumn leaf fall. Increased stolon formation through long days in strawberry. Plants like radish, carrot, etc. can be made to remain vegetative for longer period. Yield can be increased. Photoperiodism and distribution of the plants. It influences the distribution of plants on Earth's surface. Species that require long days for flowering, that is in spring or summer, occur far from equator. Short day species occur in the same region but flower in the late summer. Tropical short day species also occur growing only 5 degree to 20 degree from the equator. These species detect very small changes in day length. Example, 1 minute per day in March and September at 20 degree north or south of the equator. With respect to the photoperiod, there can be many ecotypes within a species. The northern ecotypes of short day cockleber or the long day alpine requires longer days and shorter nights to flower than their more southern hemisphere. In these examples, the different photoperiods ecotypes within a species are virtually identical in appearance but have different clock setting. Advantage of photoperiodism. The ecotypes differences are often clearly of advantage to the species. Example, frost comes much earlier in the year in more northern climates. Various ecotypes of all flower about 6 to 8 weeks before the first killing of the frost in autumn, allowing time for seed ripening. Because of the photoperiodism, flowering and other responses within an ecotype population of plants are synchronized in time. This is certainly an advantage if the plant requires cross-pollination. It is essential that all bloom at the same time. Garner and Allard noticed that soybean plants, despite being planted at various times from early spring to early summer, all came into the bloom at the same time in the late summer. Photoperiodism has made small plants which were planted late flower at almost the same time as the large plants planted much earlier. Classification of the flowering responses. First one is the short day plants. Plants that flower when day length is less than certain critical length are called short day plants. These plants require short duration of light and they are actually long night plants. They need darkness more than a critical length. For example, gentium flower. Under photoperiod, less than 15.5 hours and the duration of light should be less than the critical time. Other example of short day plants are biloxi soybeans, cockleber, gentium, tobacco and strawberry. Long day plants. Plants that flowers when the day length is more than certain critical length are called the long day plants. Dark period is not important for them. It means they can flower even they are exposed to 24 hours light. For example, the critical photoperiod of Hyacinthus niger is more than 10.5 hours. Other examples are cabbage, spring wheat and spring barley. And day neutral plants, these are known as day length indifferent plants. Such plants flower under any photoperiod. Example are tomato, cucumber, cotton, maize and garden peas. Critical photoperiod is the limit of the photoperiod up to which the short day plants flower is called the critical photoperiod of the short day plants. The limit above which long day plants flower is called critical photoperiod of long day plants. The critical photoperiod varies from species to species. Both gentium and hyacinthus flower when they are exposed to 12 hours photoperiods. Gentium is a short day plants. Its critical photoperiod is less than 15.5 hours. 12 hours photoperiod acts as a short day for gentium. it is less than its critical photoperiod. But in Hyoscyamus, it is a long day plants and the critical photoperiod of Hyoscyamus is more than 10.5 hours. The photoperiod of 12 hours acts as a long day for Hyoscyamus. It is more than critical photoperiod. Therefore, it is clear that same photoperiod can be short day for one species but long day for other. Hence, no absolute duration of light can be fixed for short day and long day plants. However, for convenience, 6 to 8 hours of light is a critical photoperiod for the short day plants. The critical photoperiod of the other plants, short day plants, is more than this. Similarly, 18 to 20 hours is critical photoperiods for long day plants and the critical photoperiods of all long day plants is less than this limit. The photoperiod may be inductive and non-inductive. If a photoperiod causes flowering, it is called inductive photoperiod. If that does not cause flowering, then it is non-inductive. Thus, short days are inductive for Xanthium, but long days are non-inductive for Xanthium. Similarly, long days are inductive for Hyoscyamus, but short days are non-inductive for it. Long day flower when the night length falls below their critical photoperiods. These plants typically flower in northern hemisphere during late spring or early summer as days are getting longer. In the northern hemisphere, the longest day of the year is on about 21st June. After that day, days grow shorter until 21st December. This situation is reversed in southern hemisphere. That is, the longest day is 21st December and the shortest day is 21st June. Some long day obligate plants are carnation, henbane and oat, and some long day facultative plants are pea, barley, lettuce and wheat. Therefore, short day plants flower when the night length exceeds their critical photoperiod. They cannot flower under short nights, or if a pulse of artificial light is given on the plant for several minutes during the night, they require a continuous period of darkness before floral development begin. Natural night time light such as moonlight or lightning is not sufficient brightness or duration to interrupt flowering. In general, short day after 21st June in the northern hemisphere, which is during summer, the length of dark period required to induce flowering differs among species and varieties of the species. Photoperiodism affects flowering by inducing the shoot to produce floral buds instead of leaves and lateral buds. Some short day facultative plants are kenaf, marijuana, cotton, rice, jowar, green gram and soya beans. In conclusion, we can say that physiological response of plants to day length perception are termed as photoperiodism. These responses vary from SDP to LDP to DNP. SDP flowers when day length is shorter than critical day length, example soya bean. LDP flowers when day length is longer than critical day length, example radish, spinach. LSDP flowers after a sequence of long days followed by short days, example jasmine. SLDP flower after a sequence of short day followed by a long days, example winter rye. DNP insensitive to day length, flowering is controlled by endogenously, example maize. And this table showing photoperiodic response of subcommon plants. Here is the Xanthium, Dahlia, Cannabis are the short day plants, and Hordeum, Brassica, etc. are the long day plants, and Impatiens phaseolus are day neutral plants. Thank you.